Our next guest is former BYU and NFL linebacker who will kick off his 11th season as a BYUtv football analyst and co-host of Game Day and After Further Review. A pleasure to welcome David Nixon to the Wise Guys. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, how you guys doing? It's been a while. It's been too long.
You're not golfing? No golf?
That's tomorrow, actually.
Oh, okay, Tuesdays.
Hey, how about that Mark Bellini? How about the Bellini brothers in BYU lore? And we just had a great visit with them. And you know what? I haven't seen him for a long time. He popped up on the screen. That's the same kid that was a dynamic receiver. You can still see it in his eyes. What an impact they had on BYU.
Well, it's interesting because I tell people, having grown up in College Station, in the showers at Texas A&M, I grew up a huge A&M fan, and frankly, I didn't know a ton about BYU until I came here as a player. And then quickly you become indoctrinated with the history of BYU, with Bellini. You go back to quarterback view and all those that paved the way for us, players that played in the early 2000s. And so, yeah, those are names that you walk around the facility and kind of tip your hat to. And it's funny, have become kind of that guy. I'm the old guy when I go around the youngsters. They're like, I don't even remember you. Who is this old guy walking around? But it's fun. It's fun to be part of that brotherhood and that fraternity.
You know what's funny is at the alumni game that we had this past April, a lot of the guys were calling me Unc. They're like, hey, Unc, we need to play. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm used to calling Uncle B, and I'm like, am I that old now?
You're the Unc.
I am.
You're the Unc now.
I am the Unc. I know. I've accepted it though.
And I was announcing your games, and I'm still younger than you guys now, which has made you guys just pass me by. Hey, speaking of pictures, I found a picture of you that I put out to promote your appearance here on the show, and it's I'm not sure who you were playing, but you were literally were you horizontal with your arm down on the? It's like you were doing a plank. But it was what a cool shot that was. I don't know what you were doing, but it looked cool.
Well, all you have to do is take a closer look at the picture, and you realize that we're playing Air Force.
That's right. That's right. It was Air Force.
So as Brian knows, when you play Air Force, you get your knees taken out every single play.
Is that what happened?
It's true.
That was a play where I was rushing the quarterback, and the lineman comes and tries to cut me, so I'm trying to jump over him, and he ends up getting a piece of my leg, and so I'm trying to brace myself with one arm and tackle the quarterback with the other. So yeah, that was an Air Force game. In fact, who did I talk to the other day? I was talking to somebody that played at Air Force, and I told him straight up, I go, listen, I hate playing you guys.
It's the worst.
You and all your cousins, where you just come right at our knees, you ruin all of our knees for the rest of our lives.
So if I'm hearing you right, then that was a picture of you getting chop blocked.
Yeah,
is that right?
Cut.
Yeah. Let me. Do we have a copy of it? I want to confirm before I start spewing. I'm pretty sure that was.
I'm pretty sure. I know it was against Air Force.
While you look at that, I'll explain to the fans, because we both, we're coached under Bronco. The worst week ever, probably worse than camp, because you don't play Air Force until week 7, week 8. And we're in full pads tackling, and then we're doing these cut drills where each position is with their position coach, and they take these huge, massive bags, and you go down the line, and they just throw it at your knees, and you have to do exactly what that picture portrayed, which is to put your hands on the bag, and you kind of have bump out a little bit to make sure the bag doesn't hit your knees. And it sucked. But it's also funny because the guys that weren't as athletic, they would get chopped by the bag and do a whole 360. So that picture, what you saw was all that hard work that David put in that week. He was able to, make a masterpiece of an image.
Just try to make a play. That's all you got to do against Air Force. But I will give them credit. They weren't given, they had to be a certain size to be in the Air Force, right? So it's not like they had big 6'8" Kingsley Sumatiyas out there, right?
Right.
And so they had to cut block. That's how they do their job, and that's how they get it done. And so, at the same time, you kind of respect it. But there were a couple times there's just some cheap blocks where they cut you from behind a chop block. And,
sure.
It's not the cleanest, but yeah, that's. That one, without any context, that picture looks very awkward and very weird. So
I know, that's why
I'm glad you gave me some time to give all your viewers some context there.
I usually get people to go, what? What's he doing? I got to listen to this. Speaking of stuff, the Cougs report to camp a week from tomorrow. Defense has got to be better this season. What areas do you think will see the most improvement?
Listen, it's all about the run game for me. If BYU looks back against West Virginia, Oklahoma State, BYU got embarrassed on the ground and couldn't stop a soul. And I think some of that was, obviously the technique the players were using, but I think some of it was schematic. I think the scheme. I think Jay Hill realized that maybe some of the stuff he ran at University of Utah or even Weber State didn't quite work with his personnel that he had in place, especially that far in the season when there were a lot of injuries piling up and he had some youngsters. And so ultimately, I think they've done a lot of self-scouting this offseason and realized, what works and what doesn't work for the guys that they have on the roster. And hopefully we see a much more improvement in stuff in the run, because last year's defensive run game, stuff in the run was literally atrocious. I've never seen over 300 yards rushing given up by BYU defense, and it happened quite a few times last season. So I think that's first and foremost. That defensive line, I feel like we always harp on the defensive line every year. For me, this year, you look at the two deep, and there's guys. You look at Nelson, Batty, Mangelson. Seen. There's guys that have had significant experience on that defensive line. That it gives me some hope that they'll be able to get the job done. You look back at John Nelson; he was one of the best D linemen last year, and they got injured. Right?
Yeah.
Tyler Batty was battling with injuries as well. And so I think you look at those guys, and if they can stay healthy, man, I'm excited for that D-line and what it does to create those linebackers behind them.
So, Dave, I remember the last time BYU was giving up 300 yards on the ground. That was 2010 when I played my senior year.
Yeah. Nice job.
Which also resulted in Coach Hill getting fired and Bronco taking over the defense. And I remember he came in the week of, and he said, "Hey, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to blitz. Here's our strengths. Here's our weaknesses," and put in a lot of different packages for us to do that. And I remember the next game we came out and played San Diego State, and we ended up winning that game after losing 4 in a row. And he sent a message to, I think, us as a defense, the fans, the program, I think college football or the Mountain West at that time, that we were going to be aggressive and go back to hard-nosed football. And he started the series out with 3 consecutive blitzes, just corner blitzes, crazy exotic things that nobody has ever seen before. And that set the tone for us for the rest of the season. And we ended up making a bowl game. When it comes to Coach Hill and understanding his philosophy and what he's trying to do, if you were in his shoes, what are you running during the first game of the season to kind of set the tone for the guys?
Yeah, listen, every defensive guy wants to get after the quarterback. They want to get sacks, or in the run game, they want to get TFL, right, tackles for loss. So if I'm Coach Hill, I put packages and design packages to get everybody involved, right? There's safety blitzes where you get the safeties involved. You get outside linebacker blitzes, middle blitzes. You can even get drops from defensive ends, right, some zone pressures. So there's a lot of different ways to get guys involved and have them feel like they're basically wanted, right? It's all about everyone doing their 111, but there is ways to get guys motivated. And I think freeing up rush DN to get after the quarterback, whether it results in a sack or a quarterback hurry, that's the type of stuff that gets defenses going. So I'm with you, Brian. I love the fact when, Bronco dialed up some blitzes to start the game off. Not only does it set the tone to the opposing team that we're coming after you, you better be ready. It puts them on their heels a little bit, but also juices up and amps up the defenders. And so I would love to see a little more aggressiveness. I think last year was tough for Jay Hill just because there were injuries in the secondary. If you recall, BYU was playing with their third, sometimes 4-string safeties. And of course, D linemen that were freshmen, sophomores last year. So he was in a tough predicament with all the injuries that piled up towards the end of the season. But with everyone healthy now in the camp, hopefully everyone stays healthy. I think he's got a lot of experience on that back end. You look at that secondary. You start rattling off all those names. Those are guys that all played last year and all contributed and had big games. You look at Crew Wakely. I think he's projected as a second or third stringer. Yeah. Look back at that Texas game and his interception and what he was able to do in that game. A lot of guys will be able to help. And the nice thing about that too is you can shift guys around. Once you gain the experience and you understand game speed, now coaches can say, listen, this week I need you to go play a nickel, or I need you to play an outside backer because they're going to spread us out, so I need you to be able to adjust a little bit. And so that experience is huge because they can play multiple positions. They're not just stuck to one position because they've already mastered that position. Now they can kind of go learn a little bit more. So it's going to be huge. I'm excited for this defense for sure.
Former BYU and NFL linebacker and current BYUtv football analyst David Nixon is on the Wise Guys tonight, presented by Brady Plus. So there's a quarterback battle going into camp. There'll be a lot of attention on that. But from your experience on the defensive side, do you guys pay much attention to what's John Beck doing over there? What's Max Hall doing over there? Who's going to be our leader? Or do you go about your business and it's just an offensive thing? What's the soap opera like?
Listen, you 100% do, and for a couple of reasons. One, because everyone understands in the game of football, quarterback is king. You only can ride or die by your quarterback. The quarterback rules everything. Mm-hmm. So you understand as well as you play defensively. Yeah, you go out there and pitch a shutout, I guess. But ultimately, you got to have your quarterback who can put up some points. And listen, you're playing against these quarterbacks. In fact, defense probably has a better feel of who should be the starting quarterback than the offensive guys do.
Preach.
Really?
Because defense, you're playing against them in one-on-ones. You're playing against them in teams. You're playing against them in combo drills. And so you can kind of see if they've got that moxie, if they've got that it. If you go pick them off, that defense, you're maybe looking at that quarterback and see how he handled that interception. Mm-hmm. Is he pouting? How's his body language? Or is he pumped up and said, give me another shot, I went right back in there? Like that, those are the things you pick up as a defense, and that's how you start to rally around that quarterback. It's going to be pretty evident quickly who's got the maturity and I guess the experience to handle the starting role. And those players will quickly gravitate towards whichever quarterback it is. It's going to be a fierce battle, and I love the fact that there's a battle to be had. But I'm a firm believer, and I've said this before, I like to see the quarterback, the number one, the starter, be decided upon earlier rather than later. Yeah. Because I think there is something to gain that continuity and allowing the team to rally around that quarterback and kind of support him and make sure that there's no indecision. Because if you wait too long, I don't think it's great for a team because it's too much up in the air. Yeah. But I think you decide early on and let the team rally around them.
You know what's interesting? In 2010, we had a quarterback battle with Riley Nelson.
Is everything in your life 2010?
Yeah. I mean, I only played here 2 years, so yeah. 2010 was pretty. I got married that year.
All right, we're back to 2010.
So what's interesting? I want to know if you did this because I just started coming out with the story a couple years ago, and I feel like nobody has ever done this. So if not, then that's fine. Okay, I'll take it. You guys can judge me. All good. But I remember when Jake Heaps came, he graduated early, and he was able to participate in spring ball. So right there out the gates, the quarterback battle happened. And Jake was my guy. I love Jake. Him and my mom are close. I'm still close to him to this day. And I remember on purpose dropping balls, from him during one-on-ones and team, just because I wanted him to win the quarterback battle. So my question is, have you ever done anything like that where maybe, okay, I want this quarterback to win, so I'm going to ease up on the pressure a little bit, anything along those lines? Or am I a lone wolf here?
You're a lone wolf.
That's exactly right.
I wanted to take every pass that Max threw. I wanted to pick it off, and I wanted to take the ball back and hand it back to him every single time. And even John Beck, John at the time was a senior when I was just a sophomore, fresh off the bench. I wanted to show him that he's not all high and mighty like he thought he was. But it was tough to pick those guys off in practice because those guys were just dialed in. But listen, I think picking them off. And it teaches them that, listen, I think we're doing them a service when you pick the ball up because you show them you can't throw that ball in that type of window. It's gonna cost us as a team, right? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're a team, and so I think there's some. I always tried to pick it off and try to go back to give feedback. And, I would have open conversations with Max and those guys of tendencies we see from them. Yeah. That to try to give them a heads up to maybe watch out for those in games. The offense and the defense, vice versa, intimately come the end of fall camp. Everyone's senses. Each other's play calls. Let's be honest, right? For sure. We knew the offense's hand signals. Yeah. They hit signal, and then we knew exactly what was happening. Mm-hmm. In fact, we had to kind of shelter ourselves so we didn't. But, but yeah, we would collaborate and try to give each other tips on stuff that he picked up or we picked up to try to help each other out.
Maybe that's why we went 7-6 that year.
Hey, that might be it. We're trying to help each other too much.
I can't wait to see the movie, Milo. Next, Big 12 Media picks BYU 13th out of 16 in the Big 12. Pick6previews.com today came out. Picked them 15th. What's everybody missing about this team?
I mean, it's easy to be down the Cougars after the way they finished last year, right? I mean, there's no doubt that they stumbled, losing 5 straight at the end. And so it's easy just to say, hey, it's the same team. Let's just write them off. We'll just put them at the bottom. But I love that position. Frankly, I'd rather be in that position than be everyone gunning for me at the top. Yeah, of course, being at the top means that you're probably worthy of that ranking. But this is a good spot for this Cougar team to be in. I think, frankly, it's used as motivation that everyone's kind of counting them out. And I guarantee it's just the bulletin board material. There's just some sound bites from Kalani saying he's just ready to get out there and play and sick of talking about these preseason polls. But preseason polls are that. I mean, nobody ever goes back and says, hey, where were we preseason and where we finished the season? No.
Never.
All anybody cares about is how you finish the season. And so there's so much that goes into play, as we know, with how the season plays out, with injuries, quarterbacks, the opposing teams and how their players play. I mean, there's so much up in the air, momentum. So I think for this team, it's a good spot to be in. I like the fact that they only have really up to go from here. There's only, I guess, a couple more spots in the drop. I've been texting with some of the coaches, and they're pumped. They're amped with this season. I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised with how this team rolls out. With one more year underneath Jay Hill, and then with some coaching changes on the opposite side of the ball, and with this quarterback battle, I'm excited to see how it all plays out.
So, David, the 11th season of AFR returns to BYUtv 1 week from tomorrow. One of my favorite shows that I've been a part of and even watched to this day, mostly because we get the actual game film, right? It's like when we're in the green room, and it's funny because one day I swear I say this all the time, but I'm going to set up a camera and I'm going to, make it PG because there's some things that probably, shouldn't be aired. But I just want to see how people see us react. And what's always funny for us is we're looking for the replay. We're like, where's the replay? Like, show the replay. Or we'll start arguing amongst each other because we're like, well, that was a PI. And then we're like, well, we can't see that view. What I love about AFR is that you guys have the coaching film, right? So you can see the wide view of the field and be able to see the things that you can't see on TV. So when it comes to, that show and what you want fans to take from it, what would you say to them?
Yeah, to your point, it's a blast. I love AFR too because it allows me to prep for the show. And as you said, I get the coaches, all 22. We get the sideline view, we get the end zone view. And so we get to go through and watch all the angles and kind of understand why certain guys may have been out of position and why they haven't. I mean, I think typically when you're watching the TV broadcast, you're like, man, why was that safety burn? What is he doing? Like, he's too far up in the box. And you go back and watch it, and you realize, well, actually, he was right. It was the backside, the free safety, who was wrong. They were in quarters coverage, and he should have been over the top, or whatever it may be, right? And so I think for us, it's nice to dissect it and be able to show the common fan why it worked or why it didn't work, and how they can get better and what they're going to be talking about in film session that same day, right? I mean, we usually film on Tuesdays, and so usually they digest things on Monday, sometimes make some changes on Tuesday. So we're trying to deliver it in real time of what the team's working on to get ready for the next game, because ultimately film rolls everything as well, right? Yeah. I mean, all the teams see all the film, and if you see a weakness, if you're an upcoming opponent, and you watch the prior game of BYU and you saw some weaknesses, you're going to try to exploit that. And so coaching staff, they do self-scout. They realize we've got to take care of this because, Oklahoma State took advantage of us here, and Kansas next week is going to take advantage of us if we don't fix it. And so it's kind of a cat and mouse game, and it's fun for us on AFR to break it all down and give people a little bit of insight of how coaching staff and players watch the film and what they're looking for.
I think a new slogan for that show would be, which is what Coach Hill used to always tell David and I when we played, which is the eye in the sky don't lie.
Don't lie. Eye in the sky don't lie.
What I love about the show is my wife doesn't understand football, and she can watch AFR, and you and Blaine do such a good job explaining. We call it explaining the game, explaining why this play worked. And sometimes we take for granted that, hey, everyone understands it. Everyone understands when we say it's a 3-4.
Yep.
And AFR is a chance to go, well, this is what it is, and this is how they line up, this is how it works, and this is how it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the real magic of the show, when you're literally explaining the game in a game that, if you sit down and turn on a football game, it is as confusing as all get out if you don't know what's going on. It's like me in lacrosse. I have no idea what's going on with lacrosse.
Listen, my mom, when I came to BYU, this is a true story. She went to Barnes and Noble and bought Football for Dummies, and she read that thing every time they'd fly up for my games. And keep in mind, they were still living in Texas, so they were catching a flight every single weekend to go somewhere in the country. Whether it was a home game, they were coming up to Provo, or they were flying somewhere in the country. So shout out to my parents for making every single game.
Yep.
But she studied that Football for Dummies book, and so this is. AFR is Football for Dummies, just in video format, not a book. So just, that's another good little clip note for everybody.
Nice.
All right, last question for you. Taysom Hill, your brother-in-law, is back with the Saints, and you always have the inside word. And he's been playing some fullback over the summer drills and things like that. How do you anticipate New Orleans utilizing him this year?
Yeah, I was actually just texting with him today. He took off for training camp, and so he's headed out. They're actually having training camp in California this year.
Nice.
Because there's something going on at their current facility. I'm not quite sure what. But, yeah, that's a huge upgrade from New Orleans to California. That's nobody's complaining about that.
Sure.
I'll tell you what, he's really excited. So, obviously, everyone probably followed the offseason news. New Orleans has a new OC, Clint Kubiak. And, Taysom this year was at the majority of the OTAs, participating with the team, and he loves his new role. I think people are going to have fun watching him line up all over the field. I mean, he's got a huge role, and Kubiak's excited to kind of use the Swiss Army knife and put him in a whole bunch of different packages. So he's excited. I'm excited to see how it all kind of shakes loose. But you saw that quote by Derek Carr. He said he's the best football player he's ever been around, and I would agree. I think he's so versatile, and he can fit in so many different positions on the field. And I think you'll see that. I think you'll see him line up at running back, fullback, tight end, slot, heck, even wide receiver, right? I mean, it's
DB, corner,
linebacker.
linebacker.
Why not defense? Yeah.
And he's nice.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's nice.
D coordinator, offensive coordinator.
We'll see him over at the golf course. He's just nice. And when he has the football, he's going to run you over.
Right, yeah.
But he'll help you up.
Yeah. Well, he's
I
feel Taysom's the type of person. I feel like that he's when he has the ball in his hand, he's trying to send you to Jesus, to meet Jesus. You know what I mean? And if he doesn't on that play, then he'll pick you up and then he'll tell you about Jesus. You know what I'm saying? So good guy.
One way or another,
you're getting Jesus in your life. Exactly.
David Nixon with us. Hey, thanks for hopping on. We'll see you in the makeup room a week from tomorrow, and it'll all be back.
I can't believe it. It's finally here. Football season's finally here. The dog days of June when there's nothing on, we finally hit July. Now we're at the end of July. So it's time to rock and roll. Let's do it.
And this is a big season for the Nixon boys playing football, isn't it?
Yeah, I got my two little boys. I'll be coaching both of them this year.
Nice.
So every night I'll have football practice with one of them. In fact, I was just on the phone with one of the coaches, and we're trying to figure out our schedules. But so I'll be taking a little bit of a step back on countdown to kick off for BYU Sports Nation, and taking a little bit of step back there. I'll still be on all the FRs, but for the pre and post game show, I'll be taking a little bit of step back so I can coach those little guys. But it'll be fun. I'll still be around.
Yeah. Hey, that's what dads do.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And some more power to you. We'll see you next week. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, guys.
That's David Nixon, BYUtv football analyst, and man, he was a tough linebacker.